Alan froze, the door's bell tinkling like a mocking afterthought. His umbrella dripping forgotten onto the worn oak floor. He'd come to this city to outrun the ache, to build a life of clean lines and late-night code in high-rises that pierced the perpetual gray. But Jordan's presence unraveled it all in an instant, pulling him back to the dirt paths of their hometown, where they'd stolen kisses under the canopy of evergreens, hands trembling with the thrill of secrets too big for 12-year-old hearts. Now, at 26, Alan felt exposed, his tailored coat suddenly too tight, as if Jordan could still see the boy who'd whispered forever into the crook of his neck before the autumn winds carried him away to boarding schools and disapproving aunts. Seattle had been Alan's reinvention, a sprawl of coffee-roasted mornings and ferry rides across Puget Sound, where the tech boom promised reinvention for dreamers like him. He'd landed a junior developer gig at a startup in Pioneer Square, coding apps that connected strangers in ways he never could, living in a cramped studio overlooking the market's fishmongers and flower stalls. The city suited his quiet intensity, its drizzle mirroring the soft patter of unresolved thoughts, its hills challenging him to climb towards something resembling peace. But peace was a fragile thing, easily shattered by a text from an old number. In town for work. Coffee? Same spot as always. Jordan, now a freelance photographer chasing stories from Portland to the Cascades, had typed those words without apology, as if the gap between them was just a skipped season. Alan slid into the booth opposite him, the vinyl creaking under his weight, and ordered a flat white to steady his hands. The cafe hummed with the low murmur of freelancers tapping away on laptops, the scent of fresh grounds mingling with the faint brine from the waterfront. Jordan leaned forward, elbows on the scarred table, his flannel shirt rolled up to reveal forearms etched with new tattoos, branches twisting like the rivers they'd swum in as kids. "Heard you made it big here," Jordan said, his grin flashing white against the stubble shadowing his jaw. "Coding the future or whatever. Me? Still chasing shadows with a lens." The conversation flowed like the sound at low tide, easy at first, skirting the edges of memory. They laughed about Mr. Hargrove's algebra class, the way he'd caught them passing notes and pretended not to notice the flush on their cheeks. Jordan showed photos from his latest gig. Misty forests in the Olympics, urban grit in Tacoma, faces of loggers and baristas captured in raw honesty. Alan found himself leaning in, drawn to the warmth radiating from Jordan's skin, the way his laugh rumbled like distant thunder. It was dangerous, this pull, but Seattle's anonymity made it feel possible. Just two men catching up, no stakes beyond the hour. Yet as the rain intensified, drumming against the fogged windows, the undercurrent surfaced. "You ever think about us?" Jordan asked, his voice dropping, fingers tracing the rim of his mug. Alan's throat tightened. He wanted to say yes, every damn night, in the quiet hours when the city's hum faded and his bed felt too empty. Instead, he shrugged, forcing a casual smile. "Life moves fast. Got a boyfriend now, Riley. He's solid. Works in finance downtown." The words tasted like ash, a shield against the vulnerability Jordan always unearthed in him. Jordan's eyes flickered, something unreadable passing through them. Regret? Maybe? Or envy? "Good for you. Deserve that." But his posture shifted, a subtle lean back, as if the mention of Riley had drawn an invisible line. They parted with a hug that lingered a beat too long, Jordan's hand pressing firm against Alan's back, his breath warm against his ear. "Don't be a stranger, Al. City's big, but we're not." Walking home through the downpour, Alan's mind replayed the touch, the scent of Jordan's cedar cologne mixing with rain. His apartment building loomed on Capitol Hill, a converted Victorian with creaky stairs and neighbors who blasted indie folk at odd hours. Riley was waiting inside, sprawled on the thrift store couch in joggers and a faded Husky's tee, scrolling through his phone with that effortless charm that had hooked Alan 6 months ago. "Rough day?" Riley asked, pulling him down for a kiss that tasted of craft beer and promise. Riley was everything Jordan wasn't. Polished, ambitious, the kind of guy who networked at rooftop bars overlooking the Space Needle. 28, with sun-kissed skin from weekend sails on Lake Union, blonde hair cropped close, and blue eyes that crinkled when he smiled. They'd met at a mutual friends gallery opening in Fremont, bonding over bad wine and shared cynicism about the startup grind. Riley worked mergers at a firm in Belltown, sealing deals that funded the very apps Alan built. Their nights were a rhythm of takeout Thai and Netflix marathons, bodies tangling in sheets that smelled of his eucalyptus body wash. That evening, as they lay entwined after a lazy dinner of salmon from Pike Place, Riley traced lazy circles on Alan's chest. "Missed you today," he murmured, lips brushing his collarbone. Alan arched into the touch, letting the heat chase away the chill of Jordan's ghost. But even as Riley's hands mapped familiar territory, Alan's thoughts drifted, to the booth in the cafe, to the what-ifs that Jordan's return had stirred. He pushed them down, focusing on the solid weight of Riley beside him, the way his laughter filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. The next weeks blurred into a tentative balance. Alan dove deeper into work, debugging lines of code that promised to link hearts across distances, ironic given his own tangled wires. Jordan texted sporadically, photos of his shoots, invites to grab beers at the Alibi Room. Alan demurred at first, citing deadlines but curiosity, and that old ache won out. One foggy Thursday, they met at Gas Works Park, the skeletal towers of old gasification plants looming like relics against the bay. Jordan arrived with a thermos of spiked cider, settling on a blanket amid the kite flyers and dog walkers. They talked for hours, the city sprawling below them in a haze of emerald and steel. Jordan confessed the loneliness of the road, the way each frame he captured felt like grasping at smoke. "You were my anchor back then," he admitted, voice rough. "Still are, in a way." Alan's pulse thrummed. He wanted to bridge the gap, to taste the cider on Jordan's lips and pretend the years hadn't carved canyons between them. But Riley's face flashed in his mind, his easy grin, the plans they'd whispered for a cabin in the San Juans. "I'm happy now," Alan said, the lie settling heavy in his gut. Riley noticed the shift, of course. Over brunch at a Capitol Hill spot slinging avocado toast and pour-overs, he probed gently. "This Jordan guy, old flame?" Alan hesitated, then nodded, the admission freeing something knotted inside. Riley's smile was reassuring, hand squeezing his across the table. "Hey, past is past. We've got this." That night, he planned a surprise. Tickets to a show at the Paramount, followed by oysters at Elliott's. As they swayed to the indie band's set, Riley's arm around his waist, Alan felt grounded, the music vibrating through him like a vow renewed. But Jordan's orbit tightened. He landed a gig shooting for a local mag, crashing at a buddy's in Ballard. Invites turned to group hangs, trivia nights at the Tractor Tavern, hikes up to Rattlesnake Ledge where the views stole breath and secrets alike. Alan brought Riley along once, testing the waters. The three of them fit oddly, Jordan's raw energy clashing with Riley's sleek poise, laughter masking the undercurrents. Jordan's glances lingered on Alan, charged with history, while Riley's jokes landed sharp, staking claim. It was during a bonfire on Golden Gardens Beach that the fracture began to show. Salt air mingled with wood smoke, waves lapping at driftwood as a dozen friends roasted marshmallows and swapped stories. Jordan sat cross-legged, guitar in lap, strumming a melody from their youth, a half-forgotten tune about lost boys and endless summers. His voice wove through the night, pulling Alan back to the creekside fires of Oregon, where confessions had spilled like sparks. Riley, nursing a beer, watched with hooded eyes, his free hand possessive on Alan's knee. Later, as embers died, Jordan cornered Alan by the water's edge. "He's not right for you," he murmured, the Pacific's roar swallowing the words. "I see it. The way you dim around him." Alan's chest tightened. Jordan's proximity ignited old fires, his hand brushing Alan's in the dark. "You don't know us," Alan whispered, but the denial rang hollow. They parted with a charged silence, Jordan's silhouette fading into the dunes. Riley confronted him the next morning, over coffee in their sun-dappled kitchen. "What's with you two? Felt like I was crashing your reunion." His tone was light, but hurt flickered beneath. Alan explained, the innocence of youth, the finality of choice. Riley pulled him close, kiss fierce. Just, don't let ghosts rewrite our story. Alan nodded, resolve hardening. He canceled plans with Jordan, threw himself into a project deadline, let Riley's affection anchor him. Yet the dreams persisted. Jordan's hands on his skin, Riley's smile twisting into something shadowed. Seattle's autumn deepened, leaves carpeting the sidewalks in gold and crimson, mirroring the slow burn in Alan's veins. He confided in his coworker, Mia, a sharp-witted designer from Chicago with tattoos of circuit boards. Over lunch at a food truck pod in South Lake Union, she listened, then said, "Love's not a code you debug, Alan. Sometimes you gotta crash the system to see what's real." Her words echoed as Alan navigated the pull. Jordan's final shoot wrapped. He texted a goodbye photo, a candid of Alan from the park, laughing, eyes alight. "Missed this already." Alan stared at it too long, thumb hovering over reply. Riley, sensing the drift, suggested a weekend away, to the lavender farms in Sequim, where the air smelled of possibility. They drove the winding roads, windows down, wind tousling their hair. In a B&B with clawfoot tubs and ocean views, Riley made love to him slowly, deliberately, as if sealing cracks with touch. But on the return, traffic jammed on I-5. They tuned into a local station playing ballads of heartbreak. Riley's hand in his felt like a lifeline, yet Alan's mind wandered to Jordan's parting words. Back home, unpacking wildflowers, Riley's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Alan glimpsed it. "Can't wait for Friday. Jay." His stomach dropped. "Jordan." The pieces clicked too late. Riley had been the one initiating the group hangs, probing about Jordan with feigned casualness. That night, as Riley showered, Alan scrolled through old texts, heart pounding. Subtle flirtations from Jordan, but Riley's replies warm, inviting. A photo exchange. Shirtless from a gym session, Riley's caption fuel for the fire? Jordan's response, a winking emoji. Betrayal uncoiled like smoke. When Riley emerged, towel slung low, Alan held up the phone. "Explain." Riley's face drained of color, then hardened. "It's nothing, just banter." But the lie crumbled under Alan's gaze, tears hot on his cheeks. "You knew. You saw him in me and you, what, competed?" Riley sank onto the bed, head in hands. "At first, yeah, curiosity. Then, it escalated. One drink after you left early that trivia night. I didn't mean..." Alan recoiled, the room spinning, memories flooded. Riley's arm around him at the bonfire, smiling at Jordan across the flames, holding Alan close while his eyes betrayed them both. "You held me," Alan choked, "while smiling at my childhood lover. Too late to cry now, isn't it?" The words hung, a title to their unraveling. Riley reached for him, but Alan jerked away, grabbing his coat. "I need air." He fled into the night, Seattle's lights blurring through tears, the rain washing his face like absolution denied. The streets of Capitol Hill swallowed Alan whole, neon signs from dive bars and late-night falafel joints flickering like faulty code in his periphery. He walked without direction, boots splashing through puddles that reflected the city's fractured glow, each step echoing the shatter in his chest. How had he missed it? The subtle alliances, the way Riley's laughter had sharpened around Jordan, like a blade honing itself. Betrayal wasn't a sudden hack. It was a slow overwrite, lines of trust corrupted one commit at a time. He ended up at California Anderson Park, the off-leash dog area empty under the sodium haze, benches slick with mist. Sinking onto one, Alan pulled out his phone, thumbing through photos. Him and Riley at the Fremont Troll, arms linked. A selfie with Jordan from the beach, grins wide and unscarred. The contrast burned. He typed a message to Jordan, "Did you know?" Then deleted it, the unsent words a ghost in the ether. No accusations. Just the hollow realization that desire had puppeteered them all. Dawn crept in gray and unforgiving, painting the park in muted tones. Alan's phone buzzed. "Riley?" Texts piling like debris. "Come home. We can fix this. I love you. Please." He silenced it, the vibration a phantom limb. Instead, he called Mia, voice cracking as he spilled the night onto her voicemail. By noon, she was at his door. Well, Riley's door, but Alan had crashed on the lobby couch, too numb to climb the stairs. Mia bundled him into her Subaru, driving to her place in Fremont, a quirky loft above a vintage shop stacked with vinyl and half-finished canvases. "Crash here," she said, brewing strong coffee laced with whiskey. Over mugs at her scarred kitchen island, Alan unpacked it all. The hook of Jordan's return, the illusion of Riley's steadiness, the moment truth cracked open. Mia listened without interruption, her dark eyes steady, then slid a sketchpad across. "Draw it out. Sometimes lines on paper untangle the mess inside." He tried, pencil scratching jagged forms. A figure split in three, arms reaching but never connecting. It helped, marginally, the act channeling rage into something tangible. That afternoon, they wandered the Sunday market, Mia haggling over heirloom tomatoes while Alan inhaled the chaos. Buskers strumming covers, artisans hawking leather journals, the air thick with grilled corn and possibility. For fleeting hours, normalcy cloaked the wound, Seattle's pulse reminding him he was part of something larger than his fracture. But evening brought the crash. Alone in Mia's guest room, futon sagging under feather quilts, Alan scrolled Jordan's feed. Ethereal shots of abandoned mills in Snohomish, captions poetic with longing. A new post caught him. A black and white of two silhouettes on a pier, hands almost touching. Caption, "Echoes in the fog." Alan's breath hitched. Was it them? Or wishful projection? He messaged, impulsive, "We need to talk." "Tomorrow?" Jordan replied instantly, "Name the spot." They chose the waterfront, piers stretching into the sound like fingers grasping horizon. Morning came damp and insistent, Alan layering on a hoodie under his coat, hood up against the drizzle. Jordan waited by the Ferris wheel at Seattle Great Wheel, camera slung over his shoulder, looking every bit the wanderer. Faded jeans, boots scuffed from trails, that flannel swapped for a thermal Henley clinging to his chest. They walked in silence at first, gulls wheeling overhead, the ferry horn moaning in the distance. Alan broke it, voice raw. "Riley, you and him." Jordan stopped, turning to face him, wind whipping his hair. "It was stupid. One night after trivia." He texted, "I was buzzed, lonely. Nothing happened beyond that, kisses, talk. Then guilt hit, and I backed off." His eyes searched Alan's, pleading. "I came back for you, Al. Not to wreck what you have." The admission twisted the knife deeper. "But you did. He pursued you to get to me or something twisted like that. And I let you both in, thinking I could handle it." Tears pricked, hot and unbidden. Jordan stepped closer, thumb brushing Alan's cheek. "Hey, you're not the villain here." The touch sparked memory. Oregon summers, scraped knees and shared sodas. But Alan pulled back, the intimacy too raw. They sat on a bench overlooking the water, ferries cutting wakes like scars. Jordan spoke of his own scars. The years after they parted, fumbling through hookups in Portland dives, chasing numbness with shutter clicks. "I thought distance would kill us, but seeing you, God, it reignited everything." Alan listened, the tide's rhythm sinking with his breath. Part of him yearned to lean in, to let Jordan's honesty mend the breach. But trust, once eroded, left foundations shaky. Back at Mia's, he confronted the logistics. Subletting Riley's lease, packing boxes of shared life. Riley showed up that evening, eyes red-rimmed, flowers in hand. Lilacs from the market, scent cloying. "I messed up," he said, voice breaking as Mia hovered protectively in the kitchen. "Jealousy got me. Jordan's everything I'm not, wild, real. I wanted to prove I could be that for you." Alan's anger flared, then ebbed into sorrow. "You can't prove love, Riley. You live it, or you don't." The breakup unfolded quietly. No slammed doors or hurled accusations. Just paperwork and divided mugs, the apartment echoing with absence. Riley moved to a sublet in Belltown, closer to work, their texts tapering to logistics. Alan stayed with Mia, the loft a sanctuary of creative clutter. Nights, he coded late, algorithms a refuge where variables didn't betray. But dreams wove Jordan and Riley into feverish tapestries, waking him sweat-damp and hollow. A week blurred into two, Seattle's November chill settling like doubt. Mia dragged him to a poetry slam at Hugo House, the room packed with voices bearing souls under spotlights. One reader, a burly queer dad from Tacoma, spoke of mending after infidelity. "We are not our breaks. We are the bridges we build from the rubble." The words lodged in Alan, a seed in fertile soil. Jordan reached out again, tentative. "Shoot in the mountains this weekend." Come. Clear headspace. Alan weighed it. Risk of reopening wounds versus the call of evergreens. Echoes of home. He went, packing a duffel with thermals and doubts. The drive to North Bend wound through fog-shrouded passes. Radio humming folk tunes about ramblers and redemption. Jordan picked him up at a trailhead cafe. Truck bed loaded with gear, his smile cautious but genuine. They hiked to Snow Lake, boots crunching talus, breath clouding in the crisp air. The path climbed steep, mirroring Alan's internal ascent, each switchback shedding layers of resentment. At the Alpine Meadow, lake mirroring granite peaks, they unpacked sandwiches on a boulder, the silence companionable. Jordan snapped photos, not of Alan, but the light fracturing on water, the way clouds parted like grace. "Why now?" Alan asked finally. As they descended, sun dipping low, Jordan paused, pack straps digging into shoulders. "Because losing you twice would break me. First time was fate. This one's choice." The vulnerability cracked Alan open, not to forgiveness but understanding. They parted with a hug, chaste but charged, Jordan's whisper lingering. "Take your time." Back in the city, Alan initiated therapy. A nondescript office in Eastlake. Dr. Elias, a soft-spoken man with wire rims and a knack for questions that peeled back facades. Sessions unearthed roots. The fear of abandonment from his parents' divorce. The armor he'd built post-Jordan. "Healing isn't linear," Dr. Elias said. "It's a spiral circling back, but higher each time." Holiday lights twinkled early on the hill, garlands draping lampposts like festive scars. Alan hosted a small Friendsgiving at Mia's. Turkey from a Roosevelt Square butcher, pies from a Wallingford bakery, laughter chasing shadows. Riley texted well wishes, civil. Jordan sent a photo of Portland snow, no strings. For the first time, Alan felt the weight lift, space for self amid the shards. Yet crisis loomed, unbidden. A late-night call from his mother in Eugene. His father, remarried and distant, facing chemo for lung cancer. The news hit like a squall, pulling Alan south on a Greyhound, the I-5 ribbon unspooling memories. At the hospital, sterile halls hummed with beeps. His father frail in a gown, eyes meeting Alan's with rare clarity. "Wish I'd done better by you," he rasped, hand trembling in Alan's. The admission unlocked floods. Forgiveness tentative, but real. Returning to Seattle, Alan sought Jordan, not for romance, but reckoning. They met at the cafe of their reunion, rain pattering like applause. "I'm not ready," Alan said, voice steady, "for us or anyone. But thank you for reminding me I'm worth the wait." Jordan nodded, pain flickering, then smiled. "That's more than I deserve." In the weeks that followed, Alan rebuilt. A promotion at work, coding features for a queer dating app that prioritized stories over swipes. Runs along the Burke-Gilman Trail, endorphins knitting muscle and mind. Mia's influence bloomed. He sketched concepts for app interfaces, lines flowing freer. Christmas Eve, he walked the market alone, lights dancing on stalls of ornaments and wreaths, the air alive with carols and chestnut roasts. A card arrived from Riley, apology etched in careful script, no pleas, just accountability. Alan burned it in Mia's fireplace, ashes curling like released ghosts. From Jordan, a print. Their beach silhouettes, titled Threshold. Alan hung it in his new studio sublet in Queen and, walls bare but breathing room. New Year's dawned crisp, fireworks blooming over the sound. Alan stood on his balcony, city sprawling below, heart a quiet drum. Betrayal had carved him hollow, but in the void, Light seeped. Self forged in fire. Love no longer a chase, but a compass. Spring unfurled in Seattle like a hesitant promise. Cherry blossoms dusting the U District sidewalks in pink confetti. The air warming with the scent of street carts hawking banh mi and bubble tea. Alan's new rhythm took hold. Mornings at a yoga studio in Green Lake. Poses bending body and breath toward balance. Afternoons lost in code. His app contributions earning nods from leads who saw the poetry in his algorithms. The sublet in Queen and suited him. A top-floor walk-up with bay windows framing the Olympics on clear days. Bookshelves groaning under sci-fi tomes and dog-eared poetry. Therapy continued. Dr. Elias guiding him through the spiral's turns. "What does wholeness look like for you?" he'd ask, and Alan's answers evolved. From armored solitude to vulnerable connection. Pixels assembling into a clearer self. Mia became collaborator, their sketches morphing into pitch decks for a side project. An AR filter app blending real-world scans with emotional overlays, turning mundane walks into mood map journeys. "You're turning pain into pixels," she teased over vegan pho at a Finney Ridge hole in the wall, chopsticks clinking like toasts. Jordan faded to a respectful distance. Sporadic texts about shoots in the San Juans. A shared laugh over a mutual friend's engagement. No pressure, just presence, a thread untugged. Riley, too, orbited peripherally. A LinkedIn connect. A coffee run-in at the beard where he looked sharper. Eyes carrying quiet growth. "Heard about your promo. Proud." Riley said, no undercurrent, just genuine. Alan nodded. The exchange a bridge neither crossed, but acknowledged. Yet under the thaw, tremors lingered. A nightmare jolted him awake one April midnight. Riley's smile twisting into Jordan's, hands holding him down while whispers mocked, "Too late." He paced the loft, tea steaming untouched, until dawn's light filtered through blinds. The next session, Dr. Elias leaned forward. "Trauma echoes, but you choose the volume." Alan journaled after, words spilling. Lists of gratitudes. Morning fog on the water. Mia's relentless optimism. The code that clicked just right. Summer beckoned with festivals. Folklife in May. Stages throbbing with fiddles and hip-hop under the Space Needle's benevolent eye. Alan volunteered at a booth for a queer youth nonprofit, tabling resources amid rainbow flags and face paint. There he met Theo, a lanky barista from Everett, 24, with locks tied back and a laugh that boomed like bass drops. Theo manned the adjacent stall for a community garden initiative, hands perpetually soil-dusted, eyes bright with activist fire. Their banter started over a spilled kombucha. Alan mopping it up, Theo quipping, "Spirits sense kindred." By event's end, they swapped numbers, Theo's text arriving later. "If you're not sick of veggies, farm share pickup Saturday?" Alan hesitated, echoes of rushed intimacies past, but curiosity won. The farm sprawled in Woodinville, vines heavy with berries, soil rich underfoot. Theo led a tour, stories flowing. His escape from a conservative upstate family, the garden as rebellion and root. They picked strawberries in companionable quiet, juice-staining fingers, sun dappling through leaves. "This," Theo said, popping a berry, "is where I learned to grow anyway." Alan shared snippets, his father's chemo updates, the betrayal scar, Theo listening without fix, just nods and shared silences. No sparks yet, but a steady hum, like circuits aligning. Back in the city, Alan's father rallied, scans showing shrinkage. Visits to Eugene became bridges, conversations deepening over hospital cafeteria slop. "You turned out strong," his dad said one afternoon, for dripping steady. Alan squeezed his hand. "We both did." The words healed fissures older than Riley or Jordan, a paternal absolution rippling outward. June brought pride, Seattle's streets a riot of glitter and drums, from Capitol Hill parades to lakefront afterparties. Alan marched with the nonprofit crew, Theo beside him in a tie-dye tank, their shoulders brushing in the throng. The energy was electric. Drag queens on floats, queer elders waving from convertibles, the collective roar a balm to old wounds. That night, at a warehouse rave in Soto, bass pulsing through veins, Theo pulled Alan onto the floor. Dance wasn't seduction, but sync, bodies moving in syncopated trust, sweat mingling without demand. After, on a rooftop overlooking the lit skyline, Theo passed a joint, smoke curling lazy. "No rush," he said, reading Alan's guarded eyes. "Just here." They talked till stars pricked the dome, Theo's dreams of urban farms in food deserts, Alan's vision for apps that mapped mental health trails. Vulnerability crept in, Alan admitting the fear. "Last time I opened up, it shattered." Theo's gaze held steady. "Then we build slow, brick by story." The summer deepened, their hangs weaving into weeks. Kayaking on Lake Union, Theo's strokes sure as he pointed out herons. Bonfires at Discovery Park, Esmores charred just right, tales of exes swapped like kindling. Alan introduced him to Mia, who grilled with playful ferocity over tacos at El Camino. "He passes," she whispered later. Jordan crossed paths once, at a gallery in Pioneer Square, his exhibit of Cascade portraits drawing crowds. "Theo, huh?" Jordan said, handshake firm, no bitterness. "He looks at you like you're the shot he can't crop." Alan smiled, gratitude swelling. Learned from the best ghosts. But conflict simmered, inevitable. Alan's app project hit a snag. Funding pitch rejected. Investors citing niche appeal for queer-focused tech. Doubt flooded. Nights spent tweaking code till eyes burned. Theo noticed, over a picnic in Volunteer Park. "You're carrying it alone." Alan deflected, but the weight pressed. Then, a call from Riley. Drunk dialed at 2 a.m., voice slurred with regret. "Saw you at Pride. Looked happy. Deserve it." Alan hung up, unsettled, the echo stirring silt. The crisis crested in August heat. A weekend getaway to the San Juans with Theo and Mia's crew. Orcas Island unfolded in emerald bays and orca pods breaching. Cabins rustic with wood stoves and decks over cliffs. Hikes to Mountain Lake tested limits. Alan's pack heavy with unspoken fears. One evening, as kayaks bobbed in Lime Kiln's shadow, Theo asked point-blank, "What's the wall?" Alan cracked, words tumbling. The betrayal's blueprint. How Riley's smile had masked the knife. Jordan's pull a mirror to his own unresolved youth. Theo listened from the dock, feet dangling in kelp. "I get it. My ex ghosted after coming out. Left me holding the closet door." Shared scars bridged, but Alan's fear spiked. "What if I break this too?" That night, in the cabin loft, Theo's touch was gentle. Fingers tracing collarbones, kisses like questions. Alan pulled back, breath ragged. "Not yet." Theo nodded, no offense taken. "Your pace." Return brought clarity. Alan revised the pitch, infusing personal narrative. "This isn't niche. It's human." It landed, seed funding from a VC with queer roots. Elation surged, celebrated with rooftop beers, Theo's arm casual around his waist. But the high dipped when Jordan announced a move. Back to Portland full-time, a studio gig waiting. Over farewell drinks at the Pike Brewing, Jordan raised a glass. To thresholds crossed. Alan clinked, throat tight. To the ones ahead. Autumn leaves turned, mirroring Alan's internal shift. Father's treatments wrapped, remission tentative but triumphant. A family dinner in Eugene, stepmom's pie a peace offering. Alan dated Theo officially, not labels but intention, coffee dates evolving to overnights, bodies learning rhythms without rush. Vulnerability bloomed. Alan sharing sketches mid-code, Theo tilling a balcony plot with herbs that scented their mornings. Climax brewed in November gray, a storm front rolling in with gale winds. Riley reached out, sober now in AA seeking amends. They met at a neutral cafe in Fremont, the troll's shadow long across the lot. Riley looked worn, but eyes clear. "I was drowning in my own shit. Insecurity. Chasing what I couldn't be." Alan listened, anger long leached to empathy. "You taught me boundaries," he said finally. "Thank you for the lesson, if not the love." They parted equals, no bridges burned, just acknowledged. The true peak hit days later, Jordan's accident. A chute in the gorge, truck hydroplaning on black ice, rollover into a ravine. Alan got the call from a mutual, critical but stable Portland general. Heart lurching, he drove south, Theo insisting on shotgun. The I-5 blurred, worry of ice. At the ICU, Jordan lay bandaged, monitors beeping steady, bruises blooming like abstract art. Al, he croaked, hand-seeking. Alan took it, tears silent. Idiot. Chasing shadows again. Vigil stretched days, Theo shuttling food, Mia video calling jokes. In the quiet hours, Alan confessed bedside. You were my first love. Riley, my mirror of what not to settle for. Theo, my now. Jordan squeezed weak. Then go live it. I'm just the prologue. Recovery loomed long, but Jordan's spirit flickered strong. Back in Seattle, Alan emerged tempered. Crisis alchemized to strength. He and Theo deepened, a quiet commitment over Thanksgiving stuffing, hands linked under the table. The app launched beta, users sharing stories of spirals climbed. Father's holiday card arrived. Proud of the man you are. Winter solstice neared, shortest day yielding to light's return. Alan stood at Discovery Park's lighthouse, Theo beside, waves crashing below. Here's to healing, Theo murmured. Alan leaned in, kiss salt-tanged and sure. No ghosts smiled over shoulders. Just them in the now. The new year dawned with uncharacteristic sun, gilding Elliott Bay in gold as fairies carved paths like silver threads. Alan woke tangled in Theo's limbs, the queen and loft bathed in rare light filtering through gauzy curtains, coffee percolating downstairs where Mia, crashing after a late New Year's bash, hunted for mugs amid the clutter. 27 felt less like a milestone and more like a mantle, shoulders broader from the forge of the past year. He slipped from bed, Theo murmuring protest, and padded to the balcony, overlooking the basil and mint thriving in their pots, a testament to tended things. Work hummed with momentum. The app's beta drew buzz in queer tech circles. Panels at conferences in San Francisco inviting Alan to speak on coding resilience. He prepped slides on his commute via the 62 bus, headphones piping podcasts on narrative therapy, the city's pulse, horns and chatter, syncing with his thoughts. Theo thrived at his cafe gig, plotting expansions to community plots in the Central District, his passion a quiet fire that warmed their evenings. Shared plates of foraged mushroom risotto, debates over permaculture ethics till wine loosened tongues. Jordan's rehab progressed in fits, PT sessions in Portland, video check-ins laced with gallows humor. Legs a pretzel, but the scars'll make killer tattoos, he'd quip, eyes crinkling despite the morphine haze. Alan visited once in February, driving the rainy corridor with audiobooks on forgiveness, arriving to find Jordan sketching from bed, lines fluid as ever. They talked little of the wreck, more of futures. Jordan's pivot to studio portraits, capturing queer families in unposed grace. You inspired that, he said, handing Alan a prelim. Theo and him imagined, laughing in a garden. Alan pocketed it, lump in throat. Write the next chapter yourself. Spring's renewal mirrored Alan's inner bloom. He and Theo adopted a rescue mutt from the Seattle Animal Shelter, a wiry terrier mix named Kip, all boundless energy and soulful eyes. Walks along the locks became ritual, watching salmon leap, Kip tugging leash with glee. One such outing, under dogwood petals shedding like confetti, Theo dropped to one knee. Not with a ring, but a seedling in a terracotta pot. Plant this with me? Roots and all. Alan laughed through tears. Yes, a whisper on the wind. Family ties strengthened. His father's remission held. Summers planned for a cabin in the Siskiyous, stepmom's garden yielding zucchini for grilling. Alan drove down more, conversations evolving from stilted to storied. His dad's tales of 70s road trips, parallels to Alan's own wanderings. Regrets a thief, his father said over beers on the porch, cicadas chorusing. Don't let it steal your tomorrows. The wisdom landed soft, a paternal heirloom long withheld. Mia's influence wove deeper. Their app collab birthed a startup incubator pitch, securing space in a co-working hub in South Lake Union. Late nights there blurred into breakthroughs. AR overlays now mapping emotional landmarks. Users pinning gratitude groves or grief gullies on city grids. Beta testers shared wins. A trans teen in Spokane finding community trails. A widower in Spokane tracing joy's return. Alan's talks gained traction. Vulnerability his hook. We code not to escape feeling, but to map it. Theo's steadiness anchored the whirl. Their love built deliberate. Weekends at his family's farm in Skagit Valley. Hands in soil planting cover crops. Nights in the barn loft stargazing. Bodies aligning slow and sure. Intimacy flowered without force. Mornings of lazy explorations. Theo's locks tickling Alan's chest. Whispers of wants unmet till now. No grand gestures, just presence. The way Theo left notes in lunch bags, breathed through the code crunch, or massaged knots from Alan's shoulders after deadlines. Yet shadows lingered, subtle as Seattle's marine layer. A work trip to LA unearthed old patterns. A flirty colleague at a mixer, compliments landing like Jordan's once had. Alan rebuffed, but the temptation stirred, echo of the pull toward novelty. He confessed to Theo over FaceTime from his hotel, voice small. Just ghosts testing the locks. Theo's response was calm. Doors stay shut, 'cause we choose them to. Trust that. The reassurance rebuilt. Alan returning with a jade plant for their sill, symbol of enduring green. Summer swelled with festivals anew. Bumbershoot stages thumping under August skies. Alan and Theo dancing in the crowd. Kip at home with Mia's watchful eye. Jordan joined once. Cane clicking rhythm on pavement. His presence a comfortable haunt. Over street tacos post-set, he raised a solo cup. To thirds that stick. No undercurrent. Just kinship. The trio laughing over shared scars. Kip's eventual adoption story stealing the show. Autumn brought harvest. Theo's garden yielding heirlooms for pies at a potluck in Madrona. Neighbors swapping recipes under string lights. Alan's app hit version 1.0. Launch party at the co-working space packed with supporters. Mia toasting with Prosecco. Dr. Elias in the corner nodding approval. Riley appeared uninvited. Edge polished but present. Congrats brief. Eyes meeting Alan's with quiet amends sealed. Thrilled for you, he said, handshake lingering a beat. Alan nodded, release complete. Same. Crisis whispered in October. A storm of another sort. Theo's ex resurfaced. A polished lawyer from his upstate past. Emails laced with nostalgia and veiled offers. Theo shared immediately. Over cider at a finny pub. Blocked him, but it stirred shit old shame. Alan held space. Listening as Theo unpacked the ghosting's echo. How it fueled his armor. You're safe, Alan said, fingers interlacing. We rewrite together. The night deepened into reaffirmation. Bodies affirming what words affirmed. Trust a tapestry rewoven. Thanksgiving gathered them all. Mia's table groaning with tofurkey and cranberry relish. Jordan Road tripping up. Kane ditched for a limp conquered. Stories flowed. Alan's dad's latest scan clear. A family trip booked. Mia's gallery show slated for spring. Laughter bridged gaps. Kip begging scraps underfoot. As pie steamed, Theo leaned to Alan. This, us, them. It's the plot I didn't know I craved. Winter wrapped gentle, solstice bonfire at Golden Gardens mirroring the beach of betrayals past. But now with Theo's hand in his, flames dancing on faces unshadowed. Jordan strummed guitar, melody evolved, no lost boys, but found men. Alan closed eyes, gratitude a tide. For fractures that taught flexibility. For loves that layered like city streets. Climax crested not in shatter but synthesis, a proposal of sorts, spring equinox under sakura at the Japanese garden. Theo on bended knee again, this time with a ring forged from recycled circuit boards, etched with coordinates of their first walk. Not end, but anchor. Marry the mess with me? Alan's yes echoed through petals. Yes to the spiral's upward turn. Healing's journey looped, but higher, app expanding nationally. Sessions with Dr. Elias tapering to check-ins. Kip's wagging tail a daily devotion. Alan's novel began. Pixels to prose. A gay coder's odyssey through code and heart. Title borrowed from a smile long forgiven. In the end, love wasn't possession but permission to feel, to falter, to flourish. Seattle's rains fell softer now, nourishing roots deep and wide. Yet even as roots delved, the world conspired to test them. May's bloom hid barbs. Alan's app faced scrutiny. A viral thread on X accusing it of gamifying grief for profit. Trolls dissecting his pride talk out of context. The backlash stung, inbox flooding with vitriol, sleep evading as he refreshed metrics. Theo found him at 3 a.m., laptop glowing accusatory. Log off. We're more than algorithms. They walked Kip in the pre-dawn hush of Queen and Avenue, street lamps pooling light, Theo's arm a bulwark. By morning, Alan drafted a response, not defense, but dialogue. A live Q&A inviting critics to co-create. Views shifted, scars shared turning barbs to bridges. Jordan's full recovery coincided with his first solo exhibit, Fractured Frames, in a Belltown loft gallery. Alan and Theo attended opening night, space humming with clinks of wine glasses and murmurs of appreciation. Jordan's work hung raw. Collisions of light and shadow, portraits of crash survivors with eyes like Alan's. Piercing, resilient. You, Jordan said later, clinking bottles on the fire escape, city lights winking below. Your spiral inspired the series. No longing, just legacy. Alan hugged him fierce, brotherhood sealed. Father's health wavered. A setback scan. Mets lurking. Alan flew south, Theo tagging for support, the Eugene Hospital familiar now as a second home. Days blurred in waiting rooms, vending machine coffee bitter, but conversations sweetened. His dad recounting Alan's toddler mischief, parallels to Kip's chaos. You mended what I broke. His father whispered post-treatment, hand frail but grip sure. Alan's tears fell free. We mend together. Remission reclaimed, tenuous, but theirs. Mia's show dazzled in June. Fremont Gallery awash in her Circuit Soul hybrids. Canvases where wires wove emotions. Installations pulsing with embedded code. Alan curated the tech tie-in, AR filters overlaying viewer-submitted feelings. Theo manned the interactive booth, his charm drawing crowds. Kip a furry mascot at leash's end. Critics raved, Mia's star rising. Over post-show dim sum, she toasted, to the crew that codes the chaos. Theo's farm dreams germinated. A grant for a pop-up plot in the Central District, shipping container turned greenhouse. Alan dove in, weekends hammering frames, soil under nails a grounding grit. Neighbors joined. Elders teaching heirloom lore, kids planting rainbow chard. Harvest Fest in August drew the block. Tables laden with salads and stories. Music from a boombox Theo rigged. In the fray, Alan glimpsed Riley, visiting from his new gig in Vancouver, smile tentative. A nod exchanged, no words needed. Paths diverged, but civility a quiet win. Summer's heat peaked with a road trip. San Juan's again, but expanded Jordan shotgun. Mia navigating, Kip in the truck bed with wind-tousled ears. Kayaks sliced dough bays coves, orcas teasing distant. Evenings around driftwood fires roasting foraged clams. Tensions? None overt, but Alan felt the weave. Jordan's tales of near misses, Theo's steady quips, Mia's sketches capturing candid joys. One night, stars thick overhead, Alan voiced the unspoken. This us scattered, yet stitched, its family. Heads nodded, embers agreeing. Autumn's palette deepened resolve. Alan's book progressed, chapters emailed to a beta reader in Theo's network. A lit agent with queer lit creds. Feedback landed. Raw, real. Polish the heart. Revisions flowed. Nights at the kitchen table. Theo brewing tea. Kip snoring at feet. Proposal accepted tentatively, advance modest but mighty. A validation beyond code. Crisis brewed subtle in November. Theo's grant renewal denied. Bureaucracy citing urban viability. Despair hit him hard. Nights pacing the loft. Fists clenched. Alan held vigil, brainstorming alternates. Crowdfunding, partnerships with Alan's app for growth maps. Theo resisted at first, pride a thorny vine. Feels like failure. Alan countered soft. Failure's the fallow, growth follows. A pivot emerged, microplots in community centers, scalable seeds. Theo's fire reignited, stronger for the scorch. Holiday lights strung early, Alan's family converging. Father and stepmom up for turkey at Mia's. Jordan road tripping with Prince as gifts. Table talk meandered. Politics skirted. Dreams dissected. Kip stole a drumstick. Chaos cueing laughter. Post-feast walk in Green Lake. Snow flurrying light. Theo pulled Alan aside under a lamppost. This life's the yield I planted for. Kiss in the glow, snowflakes melting on lashes. Winter solstice circled back. Bonfire at Golden Gardens evolved. Now annual. Crew expanded with Mia's artist pals. Jordan's photo buds. Guitar strummed. Songs layered. Old anthems with new harmonies. Alan proposed a toast. To holds that heal, not hinder. Glasses clinked. Echoes of too late, long dissolved. Climax unfolded in spring surge. A dual milestone. Alan's book deal inked. Theo's plot sprouting in 3 neighborhoods. Launch reading at Elliott Bay Book Company. Shelves groaning with tomes. Crowds spilling onto the pier. Alan read the hook. Rain-slick streets. Heart slamming, voice steady. Eyes finding Theo's in the throng. Applause thundered. Signings stretching late. Kip leashed nearby with a bow tie. Betrayal's ghost? Vanquished not by erasure, but integration. Chapters acknowledging Riley's lesson, Jordan's spark, self's forge. Post-reading. Theo whispered, "Your words held me." Alan smiled, hand in hand. Ours now. Healing's arc arced higher. Father's health stable. Travels to Vermont cabins planned. Mia's mural commissions rolling. App version 2.0 integrated Theo's AG data, mapping food access with emotional overlays. Jordan's wedding shoot invite arrived, his to a woodworker named Kai, ceremony in Oregon Pines. Alan RSVP'd yes, full circle. In the weave of days, Alan learned, love's not linear code, but emergent pattern, bugs and all, debugging to beauty. Seattle's drizzle nourished, sunbreaks celebrated. He held Theo under evergreens, no smiles over shoulders but forward, together. Yet the story's true end lingered in quiet. A morning in June, balcony breakfast, Kip chasing sparrows. Theo's ring glinted, book on the table open to acknowledgments. To the lovers who taught me release, the ones who stayed to build. Alan traced Theo's palm, future unwritten but welcome. Humanity's grace. In fractures we find facets. In holds, horizons. The chapters of Alan's life turned like Seattle's seasons, predictable in cycle, yet each iteration laced with unforeseen grace. July's warmth coaxed them to the Cascades. A backpacking loop in the enchantments, permits hard-won, packs light with dehydrated meals and Theo's herbal teas. Trails switchbacked through larches golden in alpine glow, lakes mirroring columbine blooms. Nights in nylon tents, zippers whispering. They mapped stars by app light, Theo's voice low. That one's ours, Rigel redux. Laughter muffled by wind, intimacy slow as the glacier melt feeding streams. Works tide-ebbed and flowed. Alan's book tour kicked off modest. Readings in Portland, Vancouver, BC, tying into app demos at queer lit fests. Jordan emceed one, mic in hand, limp a memory, Kai at his side with a grin wide as the Columbia Gorge. Alan's prose hits like my first shutter click. Raw reveal, Jordan quipped, drawing cheers. Backstage, hugs traded, Kai's whisper. He talks about you like legend. Alan demurred, but pride swelled. Legacies linked, not leashed. Mia's trajectory soared. A residency in Berlin beckoned, but not before a farewell bash at her loft. Walls stripped to studs, canvases crated, but hearts full. They roasted her over absinthe shots. Take Berlin, but leave the bad puns. Mia's retort, puns are my export. Tears mixed with toasts, Kip nosing for dropped olives. Alan gifted a custom sketchpad, circuits etched in gold leaf. Mapped the mess abroad. Her flight out, they waved from SeaTac, Seattle shrinking below, but bonds elastic. Father's stability invited adventure. A cross-country drive come fall. Route 66 echoes in a rented RV. Stepmom navigating audiobooks on queer history. Stops dotted. Grand Canyon sunsets. Alan tracing hoodoos like emotional escarpments. Taos adobe dinners. Stories of his dad's hitchhiking youth. You were always the dreamer, his father said, campfire crackling. Alan countered. Learned from you. The journey mended mileage, arrival in Vermont a victory lap. Cabin by Champlain, loons calling at dusk. Theo's plots proliferated. Now 5 sites. Volunteers swelling with app users scanning, harvest heat maps. A partnership bloomed with a food bank, yields feeding hundreds. Alan coded integrations, late nights syncing soil sensors to emotional check-ins. Planted today, mood lifted. Theo's grant? Revived via community votes, his TEDx invite a ripple. Prep sessions in their loft turned playful. Theo pacing scripts, Alan timing with Kip's tail thumps. Crisis grazed in December. A nor'easter vibe in Puget Sound gales. Power flickering. Theo's lead plot flooded, seedlings drowned. Despair crested. Back to square one. Alan rallied, rallying crew, Jordan hauling sandbags. Mia zooming floodproof designs from Berlin. Replanting dawn, mud to elbows. Theo's laugh broke through. Resilient bastards, these roots. Yield? Bountiful second crop. Story for Theo's talk. Floods forge. Holidays hybrid. Mia's video toast from a snowy spree. Jordan and Kai hosting in Portland. Turkey with elk from Kai's hunts. Alan and Theo ferried over. Kip in tow, tree trimmed with circuit ornaments. Games devolved to charades. Alan's betrayal mime drawing groans and glee. Midnight, balcony snow light. Theo's ring cold against Alan's finger. Every year, better. Spring's equinox wedding for Jordan. Oregon pines whispering vows. Alan best man. Words woven. You held space for my becoming. Rings exchanged under canopy. Kai's kiss ceiling. Reception dance till stars wheeled. Alan and Theo swaying slow. Ghosts guests of honor. Benign. Summer's heatwave tested. App hack. Data breach exposing user pins. Grief spots doxed. Panic surged. Alan's team firefighting code. PR spinning transparency. Sleepless, he leaned on Theo. Failed them. Counter. Fixings the fidelity. Patch deployed. Users rallied. Testimonials flooding. Your honesty healed more than the app. Growth followed, fortified. Autumn harvest gala at Theo's flagship plot. Tables under hoop houses, lanterns glowing, donors mingling with planters. Alan's book sequel outlined, chapters on communal code. Father visited, marveling at greens. Like your mom's garden, but bolder. Pride swelled mutual. Climax quieted in November fog. A vow renewal impromptu at Discovery Park. Just them, officiant a park ranger pal. Rings re-exchanged on driftwood. Waves witness. Kip bearing the bands in a bandana. Again, Theo said. For the turns ahead. Alan's yes, fog-shrouded, sure. Healing's helix spiraled eternal. Berlin Mia returning with Euroflare. Jordan's family expanding with Fosters. Alan's talks global app in schools. Betrayal? Footnote, teacher of tenderness.